Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Poultry Keepers 360 Live. Gosh, seems like we were just here last week or so, but we're going to be doing flock talk tonight. We've got a bunch of questions already lined up, but if you have some questions, just drop them in the comments and we will get to them in short order. So let's get started, will we? Shall we? What do you think?
Let's do it.
Do it. All
Let's
right.
do it.
Hey, before we get started on our program tonight, I've got three things I want to show you here. Last time we were together, Jeff was talking about feeding chicks a mixture of finely diced raw beef liver, diced boiled eggs, and chick feed. And one of our members posted this video of today of her chicks, and pretty obvious what they think about it. They like it. Let's take a look at that. And I've also talked to some other folks that have said that their birds really like that stuff. So
Yeah, I've had
It's a
several
success.
people say that too.
yeah. Another thing that I want to mention is that if you are a member of the Livestock Conservancy, and you may remember, probably 2-3 months ago, we had Sue Dobson on and Jessica Watson talking about their grants that they received. There are many grants they received from the Livestock Breed Conservancy, and they are taking new applications right now. Just started a couple of days ago. So if you have an interest, check with the Livestock Conservancy. I think that they posted it on the Poultry Keepers 360 site, and they can give you all the particulars and get you started. Another thing coming up, and just, well, not real soon, but it's time to get it on your radar. The American Pastured Poultry Association's conference is coming up. That is January the 30th and 31st. It's going to be in Orlando, Florida this year. And if you want to go, early bird special for advanced ticket purchases is open. So you want to jump on that. Don't delay on that. Okay, tonight we got some questions. Let's dive in there. Let me grab a question out of the question box here. Hello, everyone. Super happy to be in the group. I have spent the last couple of hours looking through old posts and files. However, I'm still a bit perplexed. They grew up on a farm and they've been around chickens for 40 years. So they're not new to chickens, but they're new to all of these new ways of feeding chickens. They just typically did what was done back then and throw out a big scoop of feed and let the chickens have at it. So her question is, what do I feed? I'm currently feeding Do More, which seems fine, I suppose, but I just feel like all of my chicks stay hungry and seem to be maturing a bit slow. Well, Do More is a low priced feed and it's a low quality feed. It's Tractor Supply's bargain basement brand. Um, I have used it a long time ago. I found the same thing. I didn't like the way my birds did on it. They didn't like it, and they were always hungry. And then when I started learning from Jeff uh, and how he explains nutrition, it became really apparent to me that what the problem was the quality of feed I was feeding my birds. And I started out, I was using Nutrina at the time, and that was not too long after you came out with the Showbird and Breeder supplement. And I started adding that to the feed and saw a really good difference, a big difference in that. And then it wasn't but about a year or so before we began to be able to get a good feed that Jeff had formulated down here, Triple M Farms feed, and that made a bigger difference still. So nutrition makes a huge difference. And, you've got those cheap feeds, and it's definitely a case of you get what you pay for. Um, and honestly, there's not but about one, maybe two feeds on the market that I would use today if I was having to go um, name brand feeds. I like, there's, oh gosh, I can't think of the name of it now.
It just ran away, didn't it, Rip?
It really did. Comback, 20%
Combat.
combat,
Yeah,
20%
the flock
flock
maker.
maker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you get old. Y'all laugh and you joke now, but by golly, my time's
No,
coming.
no,
I
I'm
get
right
to
there
make
with
fun of
you.
you.
I am right there with you.
Hey, look, you should see the notes on my phone. Just the notes section on my phone. There's like 500 or 600 of them.
Oh, God. Well, I'm not
It's-
quite that bad.
I have to have a note for everything.
That would drive me crazy. So
But
before you get off this subject, I
go for
want
it.
to point out to
Go for it.
everybody. Okay, so like Country Pride, Do More, whatever brand is at Rural King, whatever brand is at Fleet Farm, whatever. Okay, so those store brands, what happens is like Tractor Supply will reach out to Purina, Nutrina, um, whoever, right? All the major feed manufacturers, and they put it out on bids, right? And whoever comes in now that they have a spec, right? It may be 20%, and that's about it. They want a 20% protein. They have a little bit of a spec requirement for it. That's all they say. So then they're bidding this out on contracts, probably annually or every 2 years. And whoever can put together a 20% chicken feed for the lowest price, right? That's who gets the job. Okay.
Mhm.
So, thanks to all the big box stores out there that have trained us to think that, you can get it cheaper if you buy in bulk, right? Or you can get it cheaper. I used to blame it on Walmart only. It's not just Walmart, right? So they all do this now, and then they've fooled us into believing, to a certain extent, that all chicken feed is created equal. Well, most of the people listening to the show already know that that is not true, but that's how they do this. They put it out on bids, and whoever wins the bid, they lock in a contract. That's the price. And that's why, and like Nutrina, when I started working with breeders, I don't know how many long, I used to say, okay, use the Nutrina all flock, 20%. Well, back then it was 20%. It had a 1.1 lysine and it had a 0.45 methionine. Well, you look at an all flock bag today, it's 0.85 lysine and a 0.37 methionine, right? So it is not the same Nutrina all flock that it was 5 years ago. So you got to keep watching those tags. Things change, right? And you just have to keep an eye on it. They'll change things without telling anybody. So, and when this happens to Kalmbach, I don't know. Okay. But just keep reading your tags. Every so often, just compare it to what you had and where you need to be.
And I think the bottom line for this person that submitted this question is that if you'll drop us a note and let us know what feeds you have available in your area, we'll be happy to kind of steer you in the direction of what would be a better feed choice for you.
Shoot, in a lot of areas, if you say, "Hey Jeff, I live in this city in this state, what's the closest meal?" He can just rattle up off the top of his brain the closest meal that they work with
Right.
that has quality feed, or somebody that he knows has quality feed, and let you know the closest. Now it may be 500 miles away, but I mean, he knows if there's a meal making quality feed in America, he knows.
Amen to that. Next
Well,
question.
well, let's pause there for a second because I
Okay.
want to expound upon that as well, right? You know, people come on Poultry Breeder Nutrition, Poultry Keepers 360, one of our groups, right? And they're like, you know, where can I get good feed? All right, folks, look, where do you live? Okay, it ain't the same in the Pacific Northwest as it is in Maine, and so, A, where do you live? B, what are you willing to spend to give your birds the best feed? Right, you got to have a budget in mind when you're feeding your chickens. You can't just say, I get this all the time. I want to feed my birds the best. Well, I tell them where to find the best. Oh, I can't afford that. All right. So, you know, maybe we should start out with what's the budget? Okay. Because 90% of chicken keepers keep more chickens than they can afford to have. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's an addictive disease. It's okay. I condone it, but just let's be honest about it. So, you know, if you got breeding fowl and show fowl and you want to take them somewhere and win, you ain't feeding them Dumore, and you ain't feeding them, you know, you're not feeding them Country Pride, and you're not feeding them Nutrina. You're feeding them something, right? You're not going to the winner circle on regular old off the shelf feed.
No,
Ain't gonna happen.
guarantee you. But I, you know, anytime you ask us a question, and if it's not even just about feed, that's fine. But give us as much information as you can. What's your budget? What do you want to accomplish? Why do you keep your birds? What's your goal for your birds? All of that factors in to how we can give you an answer that will help you the best. So don't worry about trying to give us too much information.
Sorry,
Those-
Yeah.
Sue put a good comment in there. I'm dropping truth bombs tonight. Sorry, Sue.
Go,
Sorry,
Sue.
Sue. You know,
But I mean, you know, it's real because, you know, like somebody said something about organic feed the other day, and they were talking about how it was hard to find good, and you talked about Monsanto, which they're, you know, yes, it's, you're not gonna find a organic feed that has the nutrition level that a breeder bird or a show bird could have, because you can't add lysine to it, and you can only use so much fish meal and stuff like that before you jack the numbers of everything else way too high, and it don't work. So
right. I don't have all the same ingredients available on the organic side
yeah,
as conventional feed, right? So, or even non-GMO, right? I don't, you know, so we can do it with non-GMO, we can do it with conventional, but organic has limitations that is not going to give you ideal breeder feed. I can get you really close. It's not going to give you show quality and breeder feed. Okay. It's not going to be a perfect feed. Sorry. You know, I wish I could, but it's just the way the rules are written. And that's just,
It's one of those
and
things
when
that it
somebody,
sounds a lot easier than it is.
well, we get a lot of folks who want to do soy free, or they want to do corn and soy free.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the first clue the immense difficulty in trying to get that ration to balance. Okay. I mean, it's like mixing Legos with your Lincoln logs and hoping something's going to come out of it. It don't fit. Okay. Sorry, man. Not everybody's old enough to know what a Lincoln log is, but
I
I know
know.
what it
That's
is.
why I was like,
That's a good analogy.
for our younger people, they're gonna be like, "What's a Lincoln log?"
Yeah. Okay.
That's what we played with before there were Legos.
Yeah. But it just don't, okay. There's missing pieces and parts there that, you know, again, unless you're going to make the investment, yes, I can make a corn-free, soy-free diet that will work for breeders and show fowl. but it ain't going to be easy and it ain't going to be cheap. Okay. And if you're not willing to pull in the right ingredients from however far away, don't go down that road. Just
So
not gonna
Jeff,
happen.
what's the three: easy, cheap, and good? What's that saying that you've got? Since we're dropping the truth
You can.
bombs tonight.
It wasn't mine. I saw it one day. Somebody else is accredited for it. Good, fast, and cheap. Okay. You can
Yeah,
have
good,
any
fast.
of those two. You can have any two, but you can't have all three. Good, fast, and cheap. All right. And if you want fast and good, it ain't going to be cheap. And if you want good and fast, if you want cheap and good, it ain't going to be fast. Okay, so
Yeah,
just
can't have everything.
you can't have everything. It is not going to happen. All right.
We
I
got a
don't care if you name Donald Trump or the King of Siam. You cannot have it all. All right.
we had a question here that came in, and it would probably fit in this discussion here.
Mm-hmm.
Says my chick starter is only 18%. What can I add to it to increase protein? I'm in Ontario.
I would add fish meal to it, and then her next thing. Well, where do I get fish meal? Well, you're going to get it from Tiga Acres, out of Alberta. She has an excellent herring meal, and then we figure out, you contact me, some other day of the week, and I'll tell you how much fish meal to add to that, and make everything better. So not a problem. But
Problem
those
solved.
birds need a meat protein, and typically it's not commonly used in Canadian rations. Okay, so
Yeah, and let's see. I know that the two Calgary and Ontario is pretty far away from each other, but
they are.
getting some fish meal shipped from Calgary is going to be a whole lot better than getting it shipped from
I can't ship it to her. I
anywhere
can't
in
ship.
the
We
U.S.
cannot. We can't ship it to her from the U.S. Okay, it's not even
Yeah,
an option. All right.
yeah.
Thanks to Canadian Feed Inspection Agency, it ain't happening. The good old CFIA has it all locked down.
I would say they got it locked down pretty tight.
They do.
Next question is yesterday I had two chickens lay eggs without shells. I don't see any visible signs of diseases or illnesses. Other than wait to see if it continues happening, is there any immediate change you would make to their feed and nutrition? And she sent a picture here
Ooh, I like pictures.
of what the egg actually looked like.
My question is,
Look,
how long have they been laying?
yeah. Or how old is the hen? I mean, I know when our hens got out to like 4, 5, 6 years old, we would see these not every day, but we would see them more frequently, right? And the shell gland is just tired. Especially like Gary said, if she's been laying too long without a break and a molt, yeah, that's where I'm going.
She
I'm sure
says
that's where
these
he was headed.
birds are around a year and a couple of months old, so not all that old, really.
Mm.
Um, Also, depending on where she lives, there's a really weird. There's a strange virus, and it's called egg drop syndrome. Right, it's egg drop syndrome virus, EDSV. And EDSV is carried by waterfowl, and it can affect chickens. Um, and you can get anything from a leathery membrane to nothing but a yolk. So there it is. Um, so that's the other option, and it went through California 2 years ago, year and a half, 2 years ago, and the state people, and didn't really, nobody really talked about it a whole lot, but I had a larger flock, about 20,000 birds. It didn't hit all of them, but it did hit a fair amount of them. and the farmer goes out and, here's eggs laying on the ground with no shell, right? Just a pile of white yolk. And, we just stepped up the vitamins, tried to keep them calm, and waited till it, got back under control. But it's a thing. And don't see it very often. But we have had a confirmed case here in Pennsylvania. I think a lot of it goes undiagnosed, because people don't know what they're looking at, and they just start shoving oyster shells down the bird's throat until it chokes, and then hoping that fixes it.
So what you said increase the vitamins? Which ones would you increase?
I do them across the board, right? Because
Like
they
A,
all
D, E,
AD,
B12.
yeah, everything that we give poultry already, we just step it up another 25%, 25 to 50%. And so, yeah, we just ramped up, vitamins, try to keep them calm. In that particular case, we used the garlic tincture through the water to try and settle down the virus. So,
speaking of that, I've used some of that CEG stuff that y'all have, and I gotta say, not only does it work great for poultry, but it also works great for people. I was feeling pretty rough, and I was like, well, this goes when my chickens are like this. I use that. Let me try it out. And it tastes a little rough. That might be an understatement. But after I caught my breath back, I felt better almost instantly.
They make that tincture with grain alcohol, right? And
yes,
we are way past the age of drinking Everclear. Okay, what that was back in your teenage years, when you wanted to spit fire, right? So
and that's about what happened, because it's like, Everclear, apple cider vinegar, and to top that off, the cayenne hit pretty hard. Yeah. The garlic and the echinacea, that didn't really bother me so much, but the other stuff.
I can't taste the echinacea. I can taste the garlic and the cayenne, but I can really feel that Everclear, right? Mm-hmm. So even though it's been diluted down to, 100 proof, a little over 100 proof, but the cayenne is the accelerant, right? So cayenne dilates tissue to allow for faster absorption. So, that cayenne in that tincture, it'll light your world right up, but it does work, right? I swear by it as well. So I keep some on hand. Don't get crazy. You're not taking a shot glass of this. You're taking about a tablespoon worth, and make sure you got something to wash it down with right after you take it. So you better have a tall glass of cold water right there.
Okay, we've got a question popped up here. I have an adult hen that was recently developed Ryeneck. We feed a comprehensive feed based on Jeff's recommendations, but I've treated her with poultry nutrients drench, then switched to poultry cell, then gave selenium paste, goat paste. She perks up, but then goes back to kink neck. No other issues, drinking lots, trying to eat. When do I call it and do the necessary thing?
Well, okay, so this is a great question. And all right, so Ryeneck, you're really only going to see it if it is a thiamine deficiency or, selenium or vitamin E or one of those things. It's going to happen like 6 weeks of age or under. All right. When you see it in an adult bird, there's also, I cannot pronounce this correctly, but it's spondyliosis or something like that. But it's actually a vertebrae deformity in the neck, right? Where it's pinching the spinal cord or the nerve in the neck. So you can help it a little bit, right? With some like things that might be anti-inflammatory, and you'll see temporary, but really she's got, unless you can find a chicken chiropractor, chances are you're going to have to euthanize her and put her out of her misery.
Okay, next question here. Let me full frame that so I can see it. For some reason, working to mix my own feed has me, and she had a little emoji there, and I think it's frustrated. It's causing some issues. What am I missing? I'm having issues with feathers. They are thin. The shafts look normal, but the barbs are really thinning out and look like they are fishtailing, if that's the thing. And I'm not quite sure what she's describing there. There's a bit of feather picking. A rooster has a patch on his rump about the size of my palm with no feathers. It's not parasites. I've been diligent in looking for those. Um, she really thinks that the feed isn't sufficient, but she's at a loss. Here again, if we had more information, we could probably give you a better answer. Some breeds, and I don't know what breed this is, some breeds are prone to having poor feather quality. It's a genetic problem. And when you say that it's a bare patch on the rooster down near his rump, about the size of the palm, it kind of leads me to think that might be what's going on, that it might be a genetic problem. But without more information, it's going to be hard to really help you pin it down. This is the feed she's using, and I looked at it and it looks pretty good to me.
It's not bad, and I corrected it for breeders. I beefed it up a little bit, and and sometimes people reach out to us for feed formulations, and we don't get the full story that they want breeders or that they have show fowl, right? They just say they want a good chicken. They have a backyard flock and they want a really good chicken feed, right, that they can make on their own. Well, and that's what Baylor made, or that's what Rachel made in our office, right? If we don't get the full story and we don't have the full set of goals for what you intend to do with your birds, you can't make it perfect if you don't know the full story. So I need to quantify that for folks. But
no, you're exactly right.
I know what your intentions are for the birds. And if you give me a list of ingredients that don't work, then I'm going to tell you that this is not going to get you where you want to be, right? And that person wanted corn and soy free, right? And so extremely, it had corn in it, but it was soy free, and extremely hard to get it to balance.
This one says, excuse the dark photo. I was working in the dark, but my feed mill makes this wonderful mix. Problem is, I have to crush it because the birds pick out all the soybeans if I don't. Any tips or tricks to get them to eat the whole soybeans? Jeff, I know this is one of your buttons.
They won't eat a whole soybean. Most chickens, until you've trained them to it, won't eat a whole pea, right? But there's some soybeans are extremely hard. So if you get a chance to chew on some roasted soybeans that are whole sometime, you'll understand why your chickens don't want to eat them, right? I mean, they're harder than peanuts. They're really, really hard, and they're not going to break down very easily, and birds will eat around them and leave them in the trough. So they've got to be processed smaller than halves, right? So, even a half of a soybean, I watch birds leave them behind, and just because they're difficult to eat. So,
looking at these pictures, it's pretty plain why those birds are not eating them. They're not going to do that.
Yeah, it's just too big.
This one says fully loaded. My older model GQF incubator is over a full degree difference between the top and the bottom trays. Other than periodically rotating trays, any suggestions for keeping temps more consistent? This has been a problem with GQF incubators from the time they started making them. They don't have the best design for airflow in those machines. I know a lot of friends that have added an extra fan down in the bottom to help with the airflow circulation, and that has improved it. Um, I don't know if that's something you want to try or not. And like you said, other than that, rotating those trays not only from bottom to top, but from front to back. So when you move one, don't just go up with it, go up and turn it 180 degrees before you put it back in. That will help.
Well, this goes, the show we did about incubators and
Mm-hmm.
hatchers and stuff the other
Mm-hmm.
day. You never want to fully. I get really nervous when people completely fill their incubator, right? Um, I think they work best at, about 80, between 75 and 85% capacity. So if you know that about your DQF, just leave the top and bottom trays. And actually, if you leave your top and bottom trays empty, you're going to get better uniformity because you're going to get better airflow, right? But if you insist on filling them up, then
And then not only filling them up, but then filling them up, and a lot of folks use the egg flats or egg cartons to put the eggs in, and that further messes up with your airflow.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't get that. Like, now I will be the first to admit that when I'm hatching quail, I will double stack some trays in there and put a little over 1,000 eggs in. But I also have I have fans that I have bought off of Amazon that are like 6 inches square, and I take the hatching tray out because hatching in one of those is a huge mess. But I'll take that and I'll raise that fan up about 6 inches off the floor and have it just blowing straight up. And I'll use that to circulate the air because, like Rip said, GQF, they are what they are, but circulating air has been a problem since day one. And it don't matter if you replace the two fans in the top or not, you're still going to have that problem.
Yep. Let's see here. Next one. I did a bit of Googling, but still unsure what's up with this. I got a cabinet incubator, so I've hatched probably 200 chicks so far this year from my Seramas. All kinds of surprises at this point. So I have a new, I'm not going to use the word, Jeff, male in a breeding pen, and this is the first set of chicks. I have two that seem to be feathering slower. They're right at a week old. I'm assuming the feathers will fully come in correct. Long term, is this a big deal? No, sounds like your new male brought in the slow feathering gene. Um, and you can notice it's a noticeable difference for the first
Mm-hmm.
couple of 3 weeks about who has the slow feathering gene and who doesn't. But after that, after just a few weeks, they both look identical. So long term, is it going to be an issue? No, unless you want to breed it out. Then you've got to mark those chicks early uh, to move on out and not use them in your breeding stock.
I wonder if having a starter feed that the methionine wasn't really high in would also cause that. I mean, I know genetically speaking that is a thing, but I'm also wondering if maybe your methionine was like at 0.2 or something like that, if that would cause that problem.
I mean, it might, but there's some breeds that are notoriously bad about slow feathering. Marans is one of them. Um, Barred Plymouth Rocks, the males always feather out slower than the females. I mean, it's just a fact of
So you can
life.
see that white dot on their head.
Yeah.
I mean, the black dot on their head.
So, and there's some
Well,
lines of,
but can we fix that with nutrition? I mean, if you're going into it and you know that there's a breed that develops feathers a little bit slower, then why aren't we cranking up those essential amino acids, to support that?
well, I'll share this with you. I've got Rhode Island Reds. Males are notorious slow feathering birds. Now I've had them on Triple M farms. They're still slow feathering birds.
Okay.
Didn't phase
Yeah.
them.
All right. I just didn't know if we could speed it up or not. I get it. They're putting a lot of their nutrients into bodybuilding
Yes.
versus feather building. And every time you say something like that, Rip, I'm not doubting you.
No, I know.
My mind goes, can I build a bigger race car to make it, fix all of that, right? And that's where I'm going with that. All right.
I understand. And I appreciate it too.
My mind, I'm trying to figure out how to fix it. So, but that kind of goes along with, Esther's question, as far as defects like wing, tail, comb defects, are they just appearance issues or are they going to affect the function of the chicken?
Some of those affect the function of the chickens, Esther. I did a show for Carrie, week before last, or was it? I lose track. It was not this past Monday. It was the Monday before that and the Monday before that. And I talk about defects. And a lot of folks think that defects are just based on appearance. They are not. There's one or two of them that are, but they all have an effect on the bird. For example, tail defects, squirrel tail or rye tail. That can interfere with their bird's ability to breed naturally. Problems with the legs can interfere, like a knock knee can also affect problems breeding, problems walking, problems perching. So I don't know of any place you can go to find out all of this information. Although contact Kerry, he can tell you the links to those shows. And we spent 2 weeks, 2 hours going over all of that stuff.
I mean, there's a lot when it comes to figuring out all those different traits and who gets what from who and this, that, and the other. But it can be a genetics rabbit hole.
That's for sure. Next question. What's the little scabs on my Sussex? I've checked all 22 hens and it's only on my 3 Sussex. Well, she since learned that those are not Sussex, they're Colombian Wyandottes, but those scabs look like somebody's been picking on them. And when I go back and read what she's written here, she has 13 Easter eggers, 4 buff Brahmas, 2 lavenders, something, besides the 3 Wyandottes. And it sounds like that the Wyandottes are just badly outnumbered by some of the other breeds, and they're just getting picked on.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wonder if the Wyandottes are younger or smaller than
And they also
the rest of the ones she has.
Have a little bit more laid back demeanor.
Yeah, they're docile.
Some of those Easter eggers, they can be, they can have attitudes big time. Brahmas are usually not too bad. Lavenders, I don't know what lavender's a color. It's not a breed, so can't help you there.
I wonder what size of a run she has.
Don't know. What you see is what I got.
Yeah.
when I first just glanced at it, I thought maybe it might be fowl pox, but that's not fowl pox scab.
Yeah, that's why I was trying to look at it real close to see, but that's clearly like it looks like it's pecking.
Yeah.
They're apparently low on the pecking order.
I've noticed the majority of chick starter is 18% protein, despite what seems like the majority of resources advising 20 to 22%. The only starter that I can find with at least 20% are the pricier organic rations like Scratch and Peck or Mile 4. I've also heard that commercial feed is generally formulated for hybrid breeds, that heritage breeds should really be fed 22% to bring out their best cells. It's not so much the 22% protein, it's the amount of amino acids in the feed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something we talk about real regular on this show. That the
Yeah.
amino
Amen.
acids, amino
Preach it,
acids,
Brother Rip.
amino acids are as important, if not more so, than the amount of protein. So make sure you're looking at that, the levels of the lysine and the levels of methionine. You want lysine probably what, 1.5, something like that.
At least 1.2.
1.2.
There's not a feed on the market that hits all the numbers. Okay.
No.
Like we were talking about, the flock maker gets as close as you're going to get, right? At like a 1.1 and a 0.5 methionine, 1.1 lysine, 0.5 methionine. But I haven't seen, other than the one carrier selling, none of them get to those numbers, right? So,
Yep. I agree.
Jeff just says that because he formulated it.
I haven't been looking at the
biased.
comments. Do we have any questions in the comments we need to talk about?
Let's see here. There's one that is, this person says, I went out to put them up and one was on the ground glopping. She died right then. Not sure if she fell off the ramp or had a heart attack. How can I keep them cool?
Yeah, she had a post before that.
Right? Yeah, right here. It was hot yesterday in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Have a set of Jubilee Orpingtons and some backyard mix. They were all out and it was so hot, but their Orpingtons were extra hot.
Orpingtons have those long, heavy feathers. They get hot at the drop of a hat. I've talked to Orpington breeders that lose birds like crazy during hot weather.
Right, now, I don't want to upset survival flair, but I'm going to say this for the benefit of everyone in the room, and I'm not picking on anybody. Now, since the bird just died, I really want you to do a necropsy and look at the amount of internal fat that bird has. Okay, it's still fresh dead. It's a perfect time to do it. You got to be able to do this if you're going to be a serious chicken keeper. You need to know what the insides look like. But I bet you 10 to 1 that that bird's been eating too much and got way too much internal fat. And that's probably why she's suffering from the heat more than she needs to be. Now, the answer to your question is you definitely want to be running some apple cider vinegar in the water on those really hot days.
I thought that would kill your chickens.
Yeah, there you go again. You have to be the poker, right? Anyway, when on the really hot days, you use 2 ounces per gallon. Run 1 ounce per gallon the rest of the time, but don't free choice feed them. If you love your chickens, do not free choice feed them. And those Orpingtons only need 4 ounces of proper feed per day. And if you want to keep them alive, you're gonna restrict their groceries just a little bit.
I know somebody that has Orpingtons that get 3 ounces a day, and they're about 7 to 10 pounds tall, big.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you one thing. If you and when she said Jubilee, that tells me that these are English Orpingtons, and they really have the feathers on them. If you ever saw one of those that had been plucked, you would be astounded at how small the body is. I've
Mhm.
seen them that had 13-inch long feathers on the breast.
So that's my suggestion is that, let's not overfeed them.
Yep.
Let's get the vinegar in the water. Um, Make sure you got plenty of shade for them outside. And if you want to go a step further, you can find a small container, and you can make ice every night in the freezer. Put a block of ice. I don't know how big your water is, but like if you put half gallon or at least a quart chunk of ice in your in a 1 gallon drinker every day, they're gonna really thank you for that on those really hot days.
And
But
use
that
some
water,
fans.
yeah, well, the water has to be in the shade. And I can't tell you how many people put their feed and water out in the direct sunlight. And chickens are not beach goers; they're not sun worshippers, and you got to put it where they are in the middle of the day on those hot sunny days. Okay. Anyway, we'll get off the soapbox and move on.
I always hear that it's a numbers game and to hatch out as many chicks as you can for the best selection. For a hobbyist like me, that's about 30 chicks maximum. I'm glad this person knows their limits. So many folks don't. So if my selection is the bird that meets the standard and is better than the parent in all ways but one, say comb or color or broodiness, is that a recoverable trait? Yeah, it is. You can very easily recover that just by the way you mate your birds.
Hmm.
But I'm really glad that they know what their limitations are. That's a hard thing for a lot of folks to learn.
I mean, some people don't, and I think that's one of the things that leads to birds not getting the nutrition that they need and not living to their genetic potential is because that person knows that they can handle 30. People that have chicken math, they I'm only going to do 30 at a time, and they hatch 30 and they hatch 30 more, and next thing you know they got 150, 200 chickens, and they don't have enough. They can't afford to feed a 50-pound bag of feed every day, and that's, to me, that's sad to the birds.
Well, they don't scale up their infrastructure correctly. They don't have enough living space for them. A lot of people don't have enough property for them, right, to be on good ground. And again, that their spouse is saying you're spending too much on chicken feed, right? And so then they go buy a lower price chicken feed to try and ease the pain, and just things start going sideways in a hurry.
Yeah.
In a hurry.
I saw something today that kind of fits this thing we're talking about here about it's easy to go overboard on the number of chicken. A pretty smart person that I think a lot of said, think of yourself, if you were to come back as a chicken, would you want to live in your coop?
I mean, that's a good way to think about it.
Yep. If you wouldn't want to live in it, maybe your birds don't either.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I tell people when it comes to chicken feed, when you open the bag, if you don't want to eat it, why would you expect your birds to eat it? So if you wouldn't want to live there, why would you expect your birds to? That plays perfect.
This person, what is meant by a double show, also known as a double card show? Double shows are fairly new. They've been around about 25, 30 years, I guess now. Um, but what it boils down to is that if you go to a double show, you pay a double entry fee, and your birds are judged twice by different sets of judges, so they can accumulate points faster. Is kind of what it boils down to. Um, but the same judge doesn't judge the same birds in each class. For example, they've got, let's see, who's judging here? Douglas Cawthorn, Glenn C., Jamie Matz, and John Beamer. Um, in one show, if one judge judges a large fowl, the other judge will judge the bantams, and then they'll switch. So they're not handling the same birds all the time. And like I said, it's just a way to earn more points. Is what it really boils down to. I like just a regular 1 day single show. I really like a 2 day single show because you have time to visit and talk to other breeders and folks in the fancy, and you pick up a lot of information. Now that they've gone to single day shows, they want to start judging at 9. Oh, by the way, you better be through at 5 o'clock so we can get home.
Yeah.
A judge can't do a good, effective job doing shows like that. You can't. That's all.
We got a couple in the gallery, so if you're ready,
Okay.
I'll pop one up. Okay.
Go for it.
So Butch Hertz asked, what are some of the reasons chicks would die when they get to over a month old? And it's usually been the smaller chicken. Now, when he, up to the month old part, I was sitting here thinking, I don't know, by the time you get them 4 weeks old, they should be bulletproof. But when he threw in the small chicken, like it's a runt or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
if it wasn't a birth defect, from, genetics, then I would say usually a small chicken is what we refer to as a starve out. And a starve out is a chicken that did not learn how to properly eat. There's something in their brain that sets a pattern for their eating habits that has to happen in the first 48 hours. So if a chick does not fill its crop twice within the first 24, 48 hours, there's a really good chance that it's going to be a runt or stunted or just always going to be on behind. The only other thing I can think of is the bird gets pushed out, right? And there's not enough feeder space. And I know everybody looks at their feeder and says, it's not full, it's not full, it's never full. I don't know how you all are, but the way I was raised at the dinner table, right? Everybody had their place at the dinner table. Dad was at one end, mom was at the other end. My sister was over here and I was over there. And we ate at the same chair every night, right? That's just the way it was. Well, believe it or not, our animals are very much the same. So they will create a habit. If you want to prove me wrong, that's fine. Go mark some chicks, sit out there all day and watch where they eat from. But they will go eat from a similar or the same place the majority of the time. And there's not, other than genetic weaknesses, without any more symptoms, that's the only thing I can think of. You guys, what do you got to add?
That would be where I would go with it.
Yeah. Like, to me, that's a classic failure to thrive delayed.
All right. So, Jason, you said, what would supplementing creatine do in a feed? Jason, I don't know. I have not read up on creatine. I know it's primarily for muscle building. I don't know any reason why it would hurt the chicken, but I also don't know if there's a benefit. So now you've piqued my interest, and if I have a free moment tomorrow, I'm going to go look. But I don't have an answer for you tonight. I think the big thing is just going to be muscle development.
Interesting. So, do we have anything else?
You can cruise back through them. I don't think so.
I haven't seen anything.
Anybody else got anything?
I was thinking we would have more audience participation tonight, or I would have dug up some more questions.
Sue said I was dropping truth bombs, so maybe I scared him off. I don't know.
Nah.
I don't know. Maybe it's just a shy crowd tonight. I don't
I
know.
know it. Credenza's here. She's from Perth, all the way across on the other side of the whole world from us here.
That's a big time difference.
Yes, sir. Good to see you here tonight. Thank you for joining us.
And good morning.
All righty. Well, I don't really have anything else unless you guys do.
Oh, wait. John had one. John Pelton said he had a hand on. He had 2 eggs, and one had a lot of calcium on it, and the other one was leathery, like the one that you showed. That's not egg drop. That's the leathery one could be. To me, what you're describing, John, is more like old hen. She's been laying too long for too many days in a row, especially. And then, so when you start seeing strange calcium deposits on an eggshell, the eggshell gland is getting tired, right? It's only designed to deposit calcium on only so many eggs. Oh, yeah, Rip, I sent you that video link on that necropsy the other day where calcium depletion so people don't understand that the calcium for an egg does not come 100% out of what the bird eats. Only about 60 or 70% comes out of the diet, and the other 30 to 40% is actually coming from her bone mass, right? And so by the time she's been laying close to a year, you got some serious osteoporosis going on. And that's another key factor for why you have, a properly controlled molt. I didn't say forced, so don't put words in my mouth. I did not say a forced molt. But you need to take control of your bird's molt and give her that 60 to 90 days to regenerate, recycle, rebuild that bone mass, right? Get back to healthy again before you bring her back into production. So I don't think either of those, John, are really a sign of the EDSV. That's my opinion.
I had another question here. Chris Heitzman, and I hope I pronounced your last name right. He's heard that dark Cornish have hard feathers and a small amount of down, and they don't do well in the cold. But other English breeds do fine. Can you speak about this? Cornish, modern games, old English games are all hard feathered birds. That means it's not so much about the texture of birds, but it means that the feathers are held very close to the body. So there's not a lot of room in there for insulation. But other English breeds like Orpington, we were just talking about them, and they do quite well in the cold, Australorps and those sorts of things. So it's more about what the individual breed was created for and where they came from as to what they're going to do for you.
Well, I don't know where Chris is at, and I don't know what he means by cold. But even the breeds that you just talked about, Rip, those others, people are, as long as they're really good down even to like 20 or 25 degrees. They're still fine. Okay. Maybe not for an extended period of time, but if there's a night or two in the 20s, it's not going to be a major issue for them. So I would even think the dark Cornish are going to be fine, down
They can
into
take a
that.
lot of coal. They can take a lot
Yeah.
more coal than people
Yeah.
realize.
Right.
I raised Cornish for a number of years.
So,
Chris is interior Alaska, 40 degrees below zero. No, they're
okay.
probably not going to
That's
handle it very
probably,
well.
That is cold.
yeah. So probably should have, some sort of a temperature moderated facility to keep the dark Cornish in central Alaska. So, all right.
Very good. Well, folks, we appreciate you being with us this evening. We had a good time. I hope you did too. We answered some pretty good questions, and we got some pretty good questions from you folks. And we certainly appreciate you joining in with that. And we will be back. Oh, I just forgot something. Excuse me while I clean up one of my errors here.
Uh-oh.
We would like to take a short break to express our appreciation to the Portrell Company for their sponsorship of the Poultry Keepers 360 Live programming. Portrell has been a trusted name in sustainable farming and poultry nutrition for decades, and their commitment to providing high-quality, natural products align perfectly with the values we hold dear in our poultry community. Thank you, Portrell, for partnering with us to empower poultry keepers everywhere. We're truly grateful for your dedication and support. Amen. And Laura, seeing your comment here, I'm proud of you. I'm going to have to dig out my box of gold stars, and maybe if I can find one, I'll send it to you.
That's right.
So you done good.
She's even making her own feed. So
I know it. She's going places now.
Right.
She's going places.
Her and Shaggy have come a long way. They were kind of forced into making their own feed, but yeah, excellent.
Very good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us. Hope you'll be back with us in 2 weeks. And until then, you folks have a good time and enjoy your birds. We'll talk to you later.